The Philadelphia 76ers are bad. It's the worst record to start things off in 8 years, people. They fall to the Miami Heat 106-89 and now see themselves in a hole at just 2 wins and 11 losses.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome, you are Locked On with the Philadelphia 76ers. I'm Kayla Santiago alongside Keith Pompey. The Sixers are 2-11 and they are really, really bad. It's been since some of the process years that we've seen them start out this rough to go onto the season. The Miami Heat break down the Philadelphia 76ers in the second half. We all said the Heat would come in tired. Well, they did not. And then Joel Embiid, what is going on with him? Is it the knee? Is it the conditioning? It is the first time since the 2017-2018 season he has not attempted a free throw in a game. Not a lot of good things happening here, Keith. The 76ers are bad. It's reminding us of process times, except this time they have Joel Embiid, Paul George, Darren McCain. This squad looks terrible.
Yeah, it does. It really does. And it's crazy because, you look at it, since the beginning of the process, the 2013-14 season, this is their third worst record. And we're talking about, what's this, 12 years. So, like, you're right, it was 8 years. But, here's the deal. Like, since the beginning of 12 years, and the difference is those teams were trying to lose on purpose. This team was built to win a championship. Now, granted, you don't have the whole big three out there playing, but at the same time, who expected them to be 2-11? Those other two teams, we're talking about the 2014-15 and 15-16 teams, they both started out at 0-13. One team lost 17 straight games, the other one lost 18 straight. But, this is a bad start for the Sixers, and they can say all they want. All I know is it took Nick Nurse at least 30 minutes to come out and address the media, right? It's crazy. You look on the bench, you see Joel Embiid saying something to Kyle Lowry after the game where you can see that the frustration is boiling a little bit. So they can all say that, hey, they're just waiting until they get the big three. But when you look at it, like you mentioned, Joel didn't play well. We'll talk about that later on. Paul George has been extremely inconsistent, so it's just like this team is just bad right now. It could get better, but I've never seen a coach take at least 30 minutes to address the media after a game.
I can't even imagine how this coaching staff feels or the conversations going on right now. Who do you fault in this situation? Is it the coaches? Is it the players? To me, it's a combination of everything in between because nothing is working for the squad. And the biggest thing is the leads consistently, they cannot keep for some odd reason. You look after the first quarter, 33-25, then the Heat start to get it going again, 56-53, though the Sixers lead at the halftime break. And you are still ahead, and the Heat are still tired. And then the third quarter, Tyler Hero has his best quarter so far this season, having 18 points. This team is falling apart, and this is a squad that we thought was going to win this game, and they had the best odds to win this game when you're talking about on this road trip. Jimmy Butler, he's off for 10 days. He's coming back early from a sore ankle, and he drops 30 points in his first double-double of the season. Are you kidding me? I mean, this is a laughing stock right now for the Philadelphia 76ers. This team does not even look close to a championship caliber team like they said that they wanted to be. And this is a huge hole right now that they have to dig themselves out of. You're talking about one of the worst teams in the entire league. I never thought I would say that when you say that about a team that has Joel Embiid, Paul George, and Tyrese Maxey. Granted, Maxey isn't playing at the moment.
Yeah, and again, it could get better. It could get better, but at the same time, this is bad. Like, this is bad. And we talk about who do you blame, right? I mean, that's the main question. The one thing that I will say that was a little mind-boggling to me, and I'm pretty sure there is a reason, but Yabusele has been one of their best guys coming off the bench, and he didn't get any first half minutes, like, basically, you know what I mean? So to me, that was a little bit confusing, and I understand it. He's a bigger guy. You want to go up and down the court. Maybe you don't think he can do it. But at the same time, he was the guy before Jared McCain came out and exploded. This was a guy who was your best option, right? Coming off the bench. So you feel like you need him. The one thing is though, it's weird. Like, so the coaching aspect, that's the one thing I didn't understand in the game. The second thing that I will say is it's kind of like you gotta blame like the players because they keep going through lapses, but at the same time, you really also gotta blame Daryl Morey. And the reason why I'm saying that is this roster is so top heavy where you have Paul George, you have Embiid, you have Maxi, and we all know Embiid's injury history. So when you go out there and you look at this team, you know, your backup point guard right now is a guy on a two-way contract. And he played great the first game. And I'm talking about Jeff Doughton Jr. He played great, but after that, he struggled a little bit. And I'm not going to come down hard on him because he is a two-way player. But then you got to a point where the coach doesn't have any faith in Reggie Jackson, right? They have Eric Gordon out there. The coach doesn't have a lot of faith in him, right? So you have what you have is you have inexperienced guys, you have injured stars, and you have older guys who are basically like towards the tail end of their career. So while we do want to blame the coach and we blame the players, you also have to blame the person who assembled this roster.
I don't really know the mindset coming into this saying, let's get a ton of veterans on this team that aren't going to be able to run up and down the floor with the teams in the East, because that's what it's looking like right now. You knew the injury history of Joel Embiid, not only Joel Embiid, also Paul George coming in to this team as well. Tyrese Maxey, you knew was going to get a ton of minutes, knowing that those guys probably weren't going to play in a ton of back-to-backs before the season even started. And now that's the precedent that they're not going to play in back-to-backs. So what in your mind says, let me go get a bunch of veterans on this team to be able to play a ton of minutes, run up and down the floor when Joel and Paul George aren't playing back-to-backs and Tyrese Maxey is out there trying to do a little bit of everything? I understand getting vets, getting guys that have been a part, that have experience when you want to build an experienced squad. But there is no way that Daryl Morey could have sat there and said, oh, hey, Joel Embiid and Paul George are going to be healthy all year long. We're going to be fine with the veterans because they're only going to be backups. This is a team that is constructed poorly. Not only that, when you look at somebody like Nick Nurse, who I have a lot of respect for as a coach, but you look at the Raptors team, and that's why Paul George wanted to come to Philadelphia, partially because Nick Nurse was able to coach up Kawhi and those guys to an NBA championship. He had stars that were stars and played well. Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam, those guys, especially on that team, weren't maybe the caliber level until they got to that NBA championship season when Kawhi joined them. Also, Marc Gasol going in as well. You saw Nick Nurse be able to coach stars and very good players that were playing up to that level. Now Nick Nurse is coaching guys that don't know how to play up to that level and don't really know what to do themselves. It's a mess at this point.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. And not only that, when we talk about that Toronto team, you know, think about it. They had Danny Green when he
Yeah.
was in the prime of his career, right? You know, Pascal Siakam, that's the one guy you just mentioned. But, you know, he was what? He was the most improved player.
Yeah.
Norman Powell came off the bench. You know, they had a lot of guys on that team that were really good. Serge Ibaka was the backup center. So they had a lot of quality players. Marc Gasol, they ended up trading for him. You know, so that team doesn't get a lot of credit for how good it was. But when you sit back and you look at it, they're probably going to have three Hall of Famers from that team,
Yeah.
and maybe all said and done, about 6 or 7 All Star. So that's a lot. I mean, at least 6 All Stars from that team. So not at that particular time, but throughout their careers. So you know that was a pretty good team. And this team, no, it doesn't really have it. This is an old team with injured stars, and I don't know. It's just tough. It's tough.
Maybe Daryl Morey thought, getting Kyle Lowry with Nick Nurse might bring us flashbacks to that Raptors teams. It always seems like the 76ers get the guys that were in their prime and really good against the Sixers just a little bit too late in their careers where they play like Kyle Lowry is playing right now. And that's no diss on him. he's a veteran. He's older in his career. He's not going to be playing and as bouncy and as get as much minutes as he once had with the Toronto Raptors or any other team that we've been able to see throughout the 76ers getting players from those squads. So it is a mess. And we're going to keep touching on it because it has been such a rough season to start things off. And the Miami Heat, a team tired coming in, but all of a sudden in the second half, they were able to figure it out. Jimmy Buckets, well, he was a bucket in the game against the Philadelphia 76ers. And we're going to break all of that down even more in just a moment. And today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA and get $50 off instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy so your lineups stay in play. Even if one of your players gets injured, if your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks keeps your lineups live. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports in action. Join over 10 million users and sign up today. Prize Picks invented the flex play as well, which means you can still cash out. If your lineup isn't perfect, you can double your money. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play. It is highly encouraged to be able to look at these Prize Picks. Once again, use that promo code LOCKEDONNBA for $10 off. So the Miami just decided to get a whole new wind out of them in the second half and take down the Philadelphia 76ers. So why does it always seem that players tend to have career highs and season highs against the Philadelphia 76ers in their worst season looking back since 2015, 2016 to start things off? So we've touched on Tyler Hero. He had a season high in terms of quarter points with 16 in the third quarter, and then the Heat were able to lead 88-72 after that. Jimmy Butler, a season high, 30 points, his first double-double of the season. Oh, by the way, he's had 10 days off and he's coming back early from an ankle injury. So anybody else that is injured and complains, look at Jimmy Butler and look at how he plays when he comes out at the end and is able to score for this Miami Heat team. I mean, they just outplayed the Philadelphia 76ers in the second half. The Sixers got tired, and we've alluded to it already. It has been a mess. But right now, Keith, the Heat looked like such a better team than the Philadelphia 76ers. And this is a squad that we actually thought would fall to Philadelphia.
Yeah, I guess that's the biggest disappointment. Like, when you opened up and you talked about how not only did they score those points, like you expect Jimmy Butler to be a big time player. You expect Tyler Hero to make shots, right? But here's the problem. When you talk about how they were away, they had a 6-game road trip stretched over 13 days. They played the Indiana Pacers last night at 5:00 Eastern time. So then you play the game. The game is over by 7:30. You do your media. Next thing you know, you got a 3-hour flight from Indiana to Miami. Next thing you know, you get home. It's in the wee hours of the morning. You're tired, and it's a long road trip. And typically, what they say is, the worst game to play is the first game back from a long road trip. And this one was on a back-to-back. So the Sixers were in Miami for 2 days, well rested, waiting for them to play. Waiting for them to come back. And then all of a sudden, the Sixers in the second half looked like the team that was weary and just arrived in Miami that morning. And when you look at it, they were outscored 35-16 in the third quarter. Tyler Hero scored 16 points, matching what the Sixers had, right? Now, in addition to that, there was no Terry Rozier. There was other players missed it, didn't play. What's the guy? Jaime didn't play, right? Mm-hmm. He didn't play. And then in addition, Alec Burke, he got DMP's coach's decisions the previous 5 games, and he came out and was balling. So when you look at the Sixers, this is a major disappointment because they never got rhythm. They lacked ball movement when the games start like getting competitive. And how do you blow a 19-point lead in the second quarter and you're down 11 going into the fourth? So it was just a bad performance. It looked like a team that was out there who didn't want to play, a team that quit, what have you. But that was a horrendous performance.
It looked like a team that showed up in the first half and said, okay, well, the Miami Heat, they're coming off that back to back or they're coming into a back to back and they're tired and we're good. We're good. We're going to rest on our laurels. We're not going to play. And then the locker room conversation, I don't know if the Philadelphia 76ers were kicking back their feet and relaxing because clearly whatever head coach Eric Spoelstra said to the Heat in the locker room or whatever Jimmy Buckets was able to tell this team, it worked for the Miami Heat because the Philadelphia 76ers just decided to go home after the first half of action and not actually play a second half. I mean, this is so frustrating to watch how this team has completely folded in terms of early on in the season. And I know they haven't been at full strength, but you're telling me that Bam Adebayo has 5 points in this game. He does have 13 rebounds as well. You're telling me Bam has 5 and Jimmy Butler and Tyler Hero are outscoring you and a ton of other guys behind them as well. Highsmith coming in with 9 points, Smith with 10, Burks with 7. These guys are no names, you could say. They're players in the league. They're role players, but the Philadelphia 76ers role players or anybody on their team cannot seem to figure it out. And it was just a tough watch. And it's one of those things where you look at it's back-to-back games now where the Philadelphia 76ers have not scored at least 90 points. This is the NBA. I don't know if you remember the years, Keith, and I'm sure you do, when there was times where the Philadelphia 76ers at the Wells Fargo Center would give out Big Macs if the Sixers scored 100 points. Well, the league is a lot different right now, but it seems we might be going back to those times because they cannot score the ball.
Yeah, McDonald's will go out of business. They wouldn't go out of business. They wouldn't. But yeah, it's bad. They need to do better. I mean, the thing is, the offense is bad, and it's again, it's like the lack of ball movement. Some of the players right now they're better suited to be role players, but you have them trying to be scorers because you need them to score the ball, right? But at the same time, I'm gonna be honest with you, Jared McCain has been balling lately, right? He had 20 points. It was his fifth straight game with at least 20 points, tying Joel Embiid, Jerry Stackhouse, and Allen Iverson. Not tying because they went on and did more, but he became the fourth player to do that. You should have enough offensive production with him, Joel Embiid, and what's my man name?
Paul George.
Paul George. You should be able to have enough output with them and other guys set up. But it just seems like these guys are just struggling. They're not doing anything. PG has been extremely inconsistent. It's kind of like, we talk about Joel, but PG, he came out on fire and then he cooled off a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, he was great in the first quarter, and then he didn't do much in the second. So it's just one of those things where it's hard to grasp it because you're looking at it and they're just underachieving. They're not shooting the ball well. They're not doing anything, and like that third quarter was horrendous.
Philadelphia 76ers, the only thing consistent about this team right now is Jared McCain. So hats off to him, but I'm sure McCain's not happy about getting all these points, scoring 20 against Miami Heat, and then the Philadelphia 76ers can't find any source of scoring anywhere else, and they just keep dropping these games. I mean, that's nothing to be happy about for this team. But hey, McCain is balling out, so we will give him props for that. But Joel Embiid has looked really, really, really bad, and it is breaking record numbers bad. The first time he has not attempted a free throw since the 2017-2018 season. And it's not just that. We're going to break down more for you when we come back in just a moment. And hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return to FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Make sure you head over to FanDuel.com right now. And we look at some Sunday night football for the team in Philadelphia that's actually doing pretty well in the Eagles. They are -3 favorites against the Rams. That's definitely going to be a fun one. Once again, that Sunday night football, the Eagles slim edge. They have really been able to turn it up throughout this season and looking to keep on doing that to remain on top of the NFC East. So if you agree with that, or if you think the Rams might come out on top, know that these odds will change throughout the days before Sunday comes along. So make sure you place your bets here today at FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. There's no better place than FanDuel to do so. Joel Embiid looks terrible, and we're not sugarcoating it anymore. We're not saying, oh, there's an injury there, or he was sick, or he was ill. I don't want to hear it, okay? And I say that because Jimmy Butler was out for 10 days, came back early on a sprained ankle, and still was able to get a double-double, 30 and 10. So let's look at some of the numbers for Joel Embiid. Free throw attempts, none, zilch, zero, since 2017 and 2018. That is the last time that this happened. Not only that, the plus minus, we have said consistently, the hardest thing about not having Joel Embiid in the lineup is that plus minus going up and down when somebody else backs him up and comes in. So Andre Drummond coming in was a plus 13. Joel was a minus 22 in this game against the Miami Heat. The only good thing he did was hold Bam to 5 points, but I don't really think that was much of Joel either. It was a lot of him just not being able to find the rim. So I don't know what's going on at this point. You can see the knee is completely wrapped. He looks all out of sync. He looks all out of sorts. And honestly, this is the worst shape that I've seen him in a really long time.
Yeah, I don't even think he should have played. Like, here's the thing. When we did the podcast, early Monday morning, it was one of those things where you talked about, okay, he's questionable, maybe he'll play. We think he'll play because he's questionable. But then he was downgraded to doubtful, right? And then from what I'm hearing is when he was working out, he looked horrible working out pregame. But I honestly think that Joel played because he was catching a lot of flack back in Philly, where a lot of people were being critical of him, and he wanted to do it. But what he tried to do is, it looked like to me, where he wanted to be the facilitator, get people involved. Well, the problem is you don't get to the foul line. Also, you're sick, and you don't have the lateral movement that you had, even if you weren't sick. So it was just a bad game for him. And at the same time, like you said, it's been years before he attempted a foul shot. It looked like Joel did not want to be physical. He looked like he looked like and played like he didn't want to be there. I don't know at this particular time, Kayla, if it's like it's really bothering him, like that he can't move like that. But what he's doing is he's opening himself up to that. People are going to say that because he just doesn't look good. He played 3 games. He looked good in one half. And that was the second game. And then after that, he lost it. And this was kind of like a continuation of that. So, I don't know what's going on. We'll figure out more in the coming days. But I will tell you this. Something is absolutely going on with this team because remember we said it's been at least 30 minutes. I've been told that it took Nick Nurse longer than an hour or anyone longer than an hour before someone spoke. So it's not happy over there in the 76ers land. And like you said, Joel is a franchise player and he has to play much better because right now everything looks bad.
This reminds me a little bit of the years where Shaq consistently and Charles Barkley would go on record and say, if Joel Embiid choose to dominate each and every game, he would be the best player in the league. And it took him a little bit to turn that switch on, right? There has to be something going on with Joel because there's no doubt in my mind that if he could actually play well and be ready to play, that he would go out there and do it. Either that or there's something going on in the locker room that we do not know about that is consistently happening. The drama earlier on in the season with Joel, him not playing, him playing in the Olympics, all this stuff going on right now. Maybe there is a lot of conversation. Maybe there's kind of going in the locker room saying, we don't like how this is going. Joel's not playing. He's not playing hard. Who knows? Maybe it's out of spite. You hope that's not the person that he is and the player that he is. But right now, it is really tough because he is choosing not to play well. And there's not a doubt in my mind, unless he's really, really injured. So when it looks to me right now, he's choosing not to play well. There has to be an injury that maybe, once again, we talked about this a little bit, just the mental side of it, maybe him being a little bit more timid, maybe him not wanting to drive to the basket, but no free throws is unheard of. Even just doing that little swoop that he does that I
That's
can't
true.
stand half the
That's
time
true.
because he
That's
tries to
true.
get the foul without the shot. He's not even trying that. So
That's
is
true.
it Joel Embiid is just getting older and his body can't keep up anymore? Is that what's happening? Because that's all I'm thinking right now. Unless this knee is the worst injury he's ever had, he is not bouncing back like he normally should. I know his conditioning takes some time, and I get that. But this is the worst he's looked as long as I can remember. And it has been very tough to watch. He just doesn't look like he wants to be out there.
Well, you just said something that made me think like that move is something that gets him to the foul line, and he can
Mhm.
do that all the time. So the fact that he didn't do it, it makes me think that he didn't want to be out there. Because if you can do that all the time, that rip through and get to the line, maybe he was just like, forget it. I don't want to be out there. And I hate to say that, but you know what? It's funny. I remember when Chandler Parsons came out after the first game, which I thought was extremely odd. Chandler Parsons, used to play in the NBA. He played for the Rockets. He played for the Memphis Grizzlies. And he was on the show and he came out and said, Daryl Morey and the Sixers need to shut Joel down. Just shut him down and then come back next year. And the more that I'm starting to think about it, is like, well, if you say that after one game and you say you and Joel are cool, are you getting some inside knowledge to something that maybe something's really wrong with his knee that we're not talking about? You know what I mean? Because typically everyone else was saying, yo, that was his first game. He's rusty. He's this, he's that. Give him a couple days. But this guy was talking about the Sixers need to shut him down and worry about next season. So, it makes you think that maybe the guy is on to something because, yeah, you're right. This was a bad game. And let's face it, this 76ers team is not going anywhere unless Joel Embiid plays at an elite level. They're not. And I get it. Everybody's talking about bringing Maxey back. Maxey's a great player. He's an all-star. He may even make all-star again this year. But if you don't have Joel Embiid playing at an elite level, you might as well forget about a deep playoff run.
Yeah, they're not winning with Tyrese Maxey and Paul George alone. They need Joel, and it's really, really concerning right now. Now, I think a lot of people looking at this say there's still a lot of rust. He needs to knock the rust off. And maybe that is true. I'm not giving Joel that much longer, though, if he doesn't
Mm-mm.
improve, because to not get to the free throw line for the first time since the 2017 and the 2018 season, that is unheard of for Joel Embiid. It is so easy for a superstar at his caliber, a big man, to get foul calls because they tend to give calls more to the stars in the NBA. That's just how it is. And he does his swoop and he does his thing and he drives to the basket and he gets calls, whether he was fouled or maybe it was a little dramatic, but it still was a foul usually. It's not happening. There is so many causes for concern and reports coming out that Nick Nurse is not going to talk about what was discussed in the locker room. So, Keith, I hope that he was in there screaming. I hope it was that time, if you remember, when the Philadelphia 76ers were down against the Brooklyn Nets. This was when Jimmy Butler's on the team. And for the first time ever, Brett Brown went in the locker room and screamed at them and went in on them. And the first time we ever saw that. And Jimmy Butler said, oh, okay, I didn't know he had that in him. I hope Nick Nurse is doing that right now because maybe that's what they need. I don't know, but it's bad right now. And if it doesn't get much better, Philadelphia 76ers can kiss any type of second round pass goodbye. It's not going to happen if this team cannot start to pick it up. And it's early in the season, people. I understand that, but how much a hole can you dig yourself into right now, Keith? It's looking to get a little bit too big to our liking.
Oh, it's horrible. I mean, it's horrible. Like we talked about it. Like they're comparable to the process Sixers, and the fact that they had the Nick Nurse, it took him over an hour to address the media. I do not. I'm sorry. I don't want to hear people saying, "Don't worry, y'all. It's going to get better when Maxi comes back," because evidently the fact that the fact that they talked in there for over an hour, the fact that Joel Embiid was looked very disappointed after the game on the bench, and the fact that he said we're not going to get into it, lets me know that they don't believe that everything is going to get better when Tyrese Maxey comes back. Because the thing is, you know what? If you believed it, you wouldn't have to have these team discussions. You wouldn't have to have it after the game, right? So, you know what? It's like I don't want to hear it. This team is 2-11, and if you looked at Nick Nurse before the game during this press conference, he looked weary. He looked like a guy who was like a lot of stress going on, right? This team is bad. I'm telling you, they're closer right now. They're closer to getting a good pick in the lottery than they are as getting the number 3 seed in the East, and that's a shame. It's a shame.
If that happens with this team, that's going to be crazy because you're telling me you have Joel Embiid, Paul George, and Tyrese Maxey, and this is how you look right now. It's bad. Our biggest takeaway is the 76ers are bad right now. And the only way to getting better is until they prove it to us that they can get better. The 76ers fall to the Miami Heat 106-89. They are now 2-11, tied for the worst in the entire league right now. It's not a sentence I thought I would say in the 2024-25 season, but here we are. So the Philadelphia 76ers will next up have the Memphis Grizzlies. Oh, what a joy that will be with Zach Edey and company. That game is on Wednesday, November 20th at 8 p.m. Well, thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked On 76ers. It's bad, and we'll see if it gets worse or better. It's a wait-and-see game here, people. For Keith Pompey, I'm Kayla Santiago saying so long. Thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked On 76ers, and we will see you all next time.